Morning to all. Someone has rightly said that without engineers, science is just philosophy. इंजीनियर मतलब मॉडर्न विश्वकर्मा. जिस प्रकार सृष्टि की रचना के समय ब्रह्मा जी ने विश्वकर्मा जी को सृष्टि की रचना का कार्य सौंपा था, उसी प्रकार आज के मॉडर्न युग के इंजीनियर हमारे आसपास के जीवन को सुंदर, सरल और सुखरूप बनाने का कार्य कर रहे हैं. टुडे इज द इंजीनियर्स डे and it is celebrated on September 15th every year. In India, commemorating the birthday of one of the greatest engineers in India so far, and a great human being, Sir M. Vishwasvaraya, popularly known as Sir MV. Engineers Day is celebrated for the great works of Sir MV towards the development of various places which are the most developed cities of today's India. With this small introduction, Namaste and a very warm welcome to our distinguished speakers, all the dignitaries, invited guests, executive deans, directors, principals, heads, faculty members, and dear students to the celebration of Engineers Day and a distinguished lecture on the theme Indian Planetary Mission. Today, I would like to request Dr. Mahendra Sharma Sir, Honorable Pro-Chancellor and Director General, Ganpat University. Before I request him to deliver his welcome address, let me introduce him briefly. Whatever action a great man performs, common men follow. And whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. Having belief in these lines of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Honorable Pro-Chancellor and Director General of Ganpat University, Dr. Mahendra Sharma, has become a true visionary leader with a mission to provide holistic education for the betterment of the society. Sir is a seasoned scholar and an acclaimed academician. Sir's vision and perseverance have indeed helped Ganpat University to gain unparalleled success. Sir has played a vital role in the evolution of university. He is credited with many prestigious awards for his contribution in the field of research and education. I request Sir to please come forward for the welcome address. Please, Sir.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Anand Bhai, for the introduction. And my request is to always keep it short. And Honorable Patron-in-Chief and President of the University, respected Dada, who has been the real vision and the mission provider for this very strong philanthropic organization called Ganpat University, which is moving leaps and bounds, establishing newer marks every year. And the way we are moving ahead and contributing to society and empowering the students, we are achieving Dada's dream as well as fulfilling the mission of the establishment, social upliftment through education. We are really delighted that we are in the company of one of our proud trustees, Shri B.S. Patel Saab, who is the principal donor of our Polytechnic institution. Thank you, B.S. Patel Saab, for accepting the invite. And I understand it's too late in night there, but both Dada as well as yourself have been the motivation and are trying to give us that kind of energy that we have to work 24/7. So thank you for being there. We are equally delighted to have our distinguished speaker, Dr. Anil Bharadwaj ji, who is director of one of the leading research institution of the country, Physical Research Laboratory, housed at Ahmedabad, PRL. The institution was established by none other than the jewel of Gujarat, Shri Vikram Sarabhai, who was a noted physicist and has actually given India one of the best institution for space research. And we are really proud that Dr. Anil Bharadwaj ji accepted our invite to address our students, the staff, as well as the entire higher education ecosystem on this very auspicious day of Engineers Day, which we lovingly celebrate every year in the remembrance of birth anniversary of Sir M.V. Sir M.V. M. Vishveshwaraya ji was an expert in irrigation techniques and was a flood disaster management expert. And he was known for his pioneering work in irrigation techniques and flood control. He actually designed automatic barrier water floodgate, which was installed for the first time in Kadakwasala Reservoir near Pune in 1903. Apart from that, Sir MB was known for establishment of Bangalore Agriculture University, State Bank of Mysore, Mysore Iron and Steel Work, and Mysore Soap Factory. And it was Sir MB who actually was the architect of India's one of the biggest dams, Krishna Raja Sagar Dam. And in 1955, Sir MV was given Bharat Ratna. So it actually gives us an insight that an engineer alone can contribute to the economic development of the country, can create such kind of marvels that would enhance the human life for as a perennial contribution throughout the centuries. So one engineer can contribute to that extent, and we have another jewel with us in the form of Dada, who is actually doing the same kind of effort. He did it in US, he is doing in India, and today he is also hand-holding lot of startups. And it is no surprise, Anilji, you will also be very happy to note that Dada is actively guiding startups which are getting incubated at Ganpat University. So that is engineers' zeal that is reflected. So engineering as a discipline, as a body of knowledge is a science, but its application is an art. And that is what has been proven by leading engineers across the world. And today when we see that the top companies of US, whether it is Google, Microsoft, such companies are headed by Indian engineers, it gives us really pride that Indian education and Indian engineering education has proved its mettle. And if this country has to achieve the dream of our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi, of becoming a $5 trillion economy, it is engineers who have to take things in their hand and have to drive the economy. With those words, I welcome all the distinguished dignitaries on this auspicious day of Engineers Day for this important event, as well as to all my students and parents who have joined us to listen to our distinguished speakers today, and hope that while we celebrate, we try to imbibe in ourselves the spirit of engineers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mahendra Sharma sir, for your welcome address. Who else can be a better person to start with, who is not only an engineer by profession, but a true entrepreneur, a thorough philanthropic, and above all, an excellent human being. He is none other than our beloved Ganpat Dada. We are delighted to have with us a man with distinct vision, experience, and inspiration for all of us. Padma Shri Ganpat Bhai Patel sir, Honorable President and Patroning Chief Ganpat University, who believes in dreaming big and making dreams come true. Sir picked up a mission of establishment of this huge education ecosystem named Ganpat University, which has become a blessing. His valuable contribution, hardcore guidance, and meaningful nurturing are well recognized at national level. And for that, on 11th March 2019, Sir was conferred with one of the 4th highest civilian awards of India, Padma Shri, at Rashtrapati Bhavan by Honorable President of India. Sir has also been awarded as Distinguished Alumni of California State Polytechnic University, Pomona, USA, and many more awards. Being President of Ganpat University, Dada has become the vital driving force for day-to-day development and progress of the university. I invite Dr. Ganpat Bhai Patel, Padma Shri, for his ceremonial address. Please, Dada.
Good morning. Can you hear me all?
Yes.
Yes, Dada.
Am I audible? Okay.
Yes, Dada.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Anand Bhai, for such a um, good introduction. Uh, I like to be known as an engineer more than a businessman or Padma Shri or doctor or any other uh, name. So just call me a plain old electronic engineer. Uh, Respected Sri Anil Bhardwaj, uh, thank you for making time for us today. Um, I am sure you are also an engineer. Uh, Dr. Sharma, thank you for joining us today. Dr. R.K. Patel, Hamid Bhai, my friend B.S. Patel. B.S. Patel is not only an engineer, but he's a gold medalist from, uh, uh, he's an excellent engineer. I have worked with him for many, many years, and he saved my life actually many, many times over. So thank you, Bachar Bhai, for joining us today.
You're
Um,
always welcome.
it's a it's a good thing that we are celebrating um, Sri MV in his memory. Uh, we are celebrating Engineers Day. Um, I cannot imagine the world without engineers. Um, I myself was toying around early age whether I was going to be a doctor or engineer, and I am glad that I did not take a medicine as a line because I could have uh, killed many people. And instead of that, today we are creating many engineers. So I have a double benefit. Um, at Ganpati University, we take a much pride out in celebrating this engineering day today. We ourselves has produced in excess of 20,000 engineering um, alumni all over the world. So we have also done our share of serving humanity in the field of engineering. Personally, engineering has been blessing to me. Uh, Not only I have done well in the terms of monetarily, but I was able to use uh, money for a Jan Kalyan, Vidyai Samaj Utkarsh, and build this beautiful university. Uh, when I see universities built by engineers, it gives me a special pleasure because that itself is engineering. Because many people told me that it was not possible to build a university in a village where in a small town like a Kerala, and here we are. I think only engineering mind can do that. So I want to congratulate all my engineering brothers and sisters today. I also want to welcome all the young students today who are joining for this auspicious day. Uh, I I can guarantee you that you are on the right form. Continue studying engineering. I want to share one of my early story when I was in a senior year at Cal Poly Pomona. My field was electronic engineering. My timing was impeccable. Electronic has just started. Actually, it was a vacuum tube before all this transistor came along. And then after transistor, there was an integrated circuit, and then there was LSI. And today, there is a millions of transistors being squeezed into micrometers and millimeters and centimeters and decimeters. So we have come a long ways in that sense. But when I was in a senior year, I had a senior project that I had to do. And it was a wave generator. For wave generator, I need to design a uh, discrete integrated circuit using operational amplifier. So I was about halfway on my senior project. It was a 1 year project. I was a 6 month, And as I was designing a discrete amplifier, I found out that there was a guy named Bob Widler who used to be engineer at Fairchild Semiconductor. Um, and he had just invented a first operational amplifier. That was a big news. And for that, he made $200,000, which is not much money in today's term. But all the engineers, IEEE honored him, and we all went, wow, you can really become millionaire. In those days, $200,000 was a millionaire. And then he retired in Mexico with he used to carry a X on his shoulder all the time. And he used to be going in the jungles. But anyway, he became my hero. And I immediately thought that, wow, engineer can make $200,000. I'm in the right field and my timing is excellent. And I was able to use that operational amplifier that could save me a lot of time designing discrete operational amplifier. Today, we all take it for granted, this kind of invention. But what we are doing today, someday in the future, our children will take those things for granted. So they will be giving us the credit, and engineering is like that. In such a short time, world has come a long ways. I remember installing a first computer for Tata Burrows in a building, Air India building in a Niriman Point. That computer took 2 floors of that building, and that computer was less powerful than your telephone today, your iPhone, with a cloud computing. So you can imagine how far we have come along. That whole 2-floor, the computer was occupying 2-floor space of the Air India building on the Niriman Point, which is the most expensive real estate. I'm just trying to make a point where how far engineering has come. So to make my story short, I was able to leverage my engineering degree and my engineering education. And I wish that all of the young generation today can do the same thing. Not only do the engineering, but see if you can use it for Jan Kalyan. You can use it for the society, for community. I think engineering has played a big role in humanity, and I want to wish all of the today's engineer a good luck. This is my wish for you, that you can do the same thing what has happened to me during my lifetime. Thank you.
Thank you, Ganpat Dada, for your sharing your story and a journey as an engineer. Now I would like to request Shri B.S. Patel sir, who is a member of Board of Governors, Ganpat University, and Principal Donor, Ganpat University, B.S. Patel Polytechnic Institute, to share a few words with us. Please, sir.
Anil Bhai, Dr. Sharma, Amit Bhai, staff members, and the student body. I'm an old engineer. Even I graduated 10 years before Pat graduated. I graduated in 1959 in electrical engineering. Those days, electrical engineering had just the fixed syllabus, no choices, and generally power generation and distribution, motors, transformers, power lines, whatever, but no electronics. And at Michigan, well, I graduated in 1960 with a master's degree, but the same field, because once I had the BS in power, you cannot change it. So I went further deep in power distribution and power generation. But when I joined the industry in 61, I found out that the there is nobody really takes power engineering in this country. So there was a demand for power engineering because everybody wanted to go to electronics. Well, I wanted to go to electronics also, even though I have background in power generation. So I joined the company who was working on military projects, designing military converters and inverters, which uses semiconductors. And I had no background in semiconductors. So immediately I started taking classes at night at neighboring university. And I learned electronics. I had basis, good foundation in electrical power. So I knew how the power, what is electric, what is I equal to V over R. That I knew. One of my professors used to tell us that if you knew that I equals to V over R, you pass my class. That's fundamental. Well, I knew that part. But then when I joined Cherokee in 1987, we were further along in electronics. We were designing power supplies and using the latest semiconductors. As Pat said, I studied some electronics, but it was vacuum tubes. Well, when I joined Cherokee, nobody even knew, all the engineers, what are you talking about, the vacuum tubes. So again, I had to educate further myself by reading magazines, buying some electronic books. And I educated myself so I can be a good design engineer while I can also manage the engineers. Because I'm sorry to say, but it's very difficult to manage engineers. They want to run faster than you want them. One time I told Pat, one of my engineers, what I tell them and they do something else. You know what he told me? He said, Bud, why don't you tie down with a darrow? And I said, what is darrow, Pat? Well, then he explained me, you know, આપણે buffalo and આપણે darrow બાંધીએ છીએ. So
in the village, we have buffalo, we put a piece of wood around them.
It's a big piece of wood. If you try to run faster and faster, it hurts you more and more. It hits. So
Control your engineers.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say, he's a very, very down-to-earth practical guy. He knows all those little things what our mothers and fathers did it because they knew how to control buffalo. Anyway, that was one of the good things he told me because I was getting some practical knowledge. But look at how far electronics come. Pat told me that he designed a, 400 amp power supply, 5 volt, which probably weighed 40 pounds. And he got paid $2,000 a piece, $2,000 those days. Today, you can design and build a power supply, same rating, 2,000 watts, around 5 to 7 pounds, and cost you less than $200. Look at the progress. Same way in electronics chips. You know, first transistors came, then came ICs, then came microprocessor. Today, Apple uses one of the chip, they call it a nano chip in a Mac computer, which is 14 nanometer size, which has millions of transistors in there. Think about it. 14 times 10 to the minus 9 meter size. That's nanometer. And that's the latest. And that follows exactly the Moore's law.
Moore's law.
Gordon Moore was a founder of Intel. And in 1965, he said, every 2 years in the IC chips, transistor will double. And the IC industry is doing even better than that. That every 2 years, the chip will accommodate double the number of transistors from previous year. So one thing I want to point out to my students, right, is that whatever you are learning today in class is just the basic. It gives you good fundamental, good foundation. But in 5 years, if you don't keep up yourself, you will be obsolete, because engineering is changing very, very fast before you think. So if you want to keep up with the industry, keep up with the competition, always keep up yourself, learn new things, think out of the box. Okay, that's the main thing. Because there's too much competition. I know in India now competition is there, but in America competition is fierce, very, very competitive. If you take a nap, you're done. You have to be awake all the time. Yeah. Now, what I like to also tell a couple of things to my students, that if you go to business, or if you go to work for a businessman, or you start your own business, if you're lucky enough and if you're successful, please don't forget integrity, honesty, and transparency. Because India today needs more than anything else is honesty and integrity. And I know Ganpati University is trying to build those qualities, most of our students. But that is, you may make money, but please don't lose the sight of ethics. Second thing I like to request is, if you're fortunate, you're lucky enough to make money like Pat did, please don't forget Samvedana. Because we need people. There are many, many people are less fortunate than we are, and we should never forget them. And that's, I think we had a couple of nights ago, we had a lecture series on Samvedana. So if you are fortunate enough, please don't forget your society, your country, your family, and those who are less fortunate. Help them. So that's all really I have, is keep up. In order to keep up with the advances in engineering, you have to keep working at it. You cannot just sit on your, sit on the laurel that, hey, I have my degree now, I got my good job, good paying. No, believe me, if you don't keep up, in 5 years, you will be totally obsolete and you will have a hard time finding a job. Look at the advances also. When I graduated, there were no computers. Computers started, I think, in early or late 60s. Steve Jobs started. But today, you take the one I'm using, Mac, at Pat says, this can do better than his 2-story computer he designed or he delivered in India. This computer can do much more. Look what we are doing, talking to each other. It doesn't even cost us anything. These are called the advancements in engineering. Which field can do better? Medical field has advances, but nothing compared to engineering.
You're biased.
Well, yeah, we are engineers. So anyway, thanks for listening to me, and God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now it's time to invite our distinguished speaker, Dr. Anil Bharadwaj ji. Sir is here with us today. Dr. Anil Bharadwaj ji, sir is a Director, Physical Research Laboratory, PRL, Ahmedabad. Sir received his PhD from Indian Institute of Technology, Banaras Hindu University, BHU in 1992. After his doctorate, Sir has joined Indian Space Research Organization, ISRO, in 1993 as a scientist at the Space Physical Laboratory, SPL, and became the head of the newly formed Planetary Science Branch of SPL in August 2007. Sir was subsequently the director of SPL during February 2014 to 2017. Currently, Sir is the Director of Physical Research Laboratory, PRL, Ahmedabad. Dr. Bharadwaj sir has worked at NASA, Marshall Space Flight Center, USA, for about 2 years at National Academy of Science Senior Research Associate during 2004 to 2005. Sir was the principal investigator of SARA experiment on the first Indian lunar mission Chandrayaan-1, which has revolutionized our understanding on the interaction of solar wind with the moon through several new findings. Sir is also the PI of Menka experiment on the Indian Mars orbital mission. He and his team have PI lead experiments on Chandrayaan-2 orbiter, rover and lander mission, as well as Aditya L1 mission. Dr. Bharadwaj sir has received many awards and honors, including the most coveted Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Prize 2007 and the Infosys Prize in Physical Science 2016. Dr. Bharadwaj sir is currently a Vice Chair of COSPAR Commission B. I invite Dr. Anil Bharadwaj sir to share his valuable thoughts with us on the topic of Indian planetary mission. Please, sir. Over to you, sir.
Namaskar. Very good morning. Kem Cho.
Namaste. Very good morning. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Morning. Thank you.
Shri Ganpat Bhai, Shri B.S. Patel ji, Dr. Mahendra Sharma ji, Anand Bhai, Amit Bhai, Rakesh Bhai, all Bhais sitting there, and my staff of Ganpat, and in particular the students who have joined us on this occasion. Let me wish you a very happy Engineers Day, 15th of September, the birthday of Sir M. Vishwesvaraya, one of the most distinguished and eminent engineer of modern India. I feel privileged to be invited by Ganpat University to deliver this lecture on this very special occasion of Engineers Day celebration. I visited Ganpat University earlier this year when Gujarat Science Congress was organized there during February 8 and 9. And so I'm quite familiar with the achievements of Ganpat University, and in particular, of course, of the Ganpat Bhai. Today, I'm going to talk on Indian planetary missions. So let me put this up, the talk. Let me see. Is it coming live now? Are you able to see
it? Yeah, it is perfectly done.
Oh, great. And my voice is clear to all of you?
Yes, sir, perfectly.
Okay, very good.
Yes.
So what I'm going to do today is take an example of the Indian Mars Orbiter mission, the MOM or Mangalyaan, to take you to a journey of a planetary mission. And that will also tell you about how we plan a mission and what kind of challenges really comes up. Because this is a talk more for engineers, so I have tried to put in less science output from this mission, but more on engineering sides, which you will really appreciate of what kind of challenges are faced when we take this kind of missions. And I would like to dedicate this talk to Vikram Sarabhai, who is the founder of Physical Research Laboratory. And 2019-2020 is the birth centenary year of Dr. Vikram Sarabhai. He founded PRL in the year 1947 when India became independent that year, at the age of 28. So you can imagine his foresightness about development of science and technology in the country just when India became independent. Now, when we talk about planetary mission, let me just give you a little bit flavor of the planetary science in particular and talk to you about this new solar system. Why we call it as new solar system? Because now we have 8 classical planets in our solar system, starting from Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. And Pluto is now comes under the category of dwarf planet or minor planet. And there's a reason behind that. But if you look at this solar system, one can very clearly see that there are two classes of planets. One is the inner part of the solar system, which consists of Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars, which is much smaller in size compared to outer part of our solar system, which is basically Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. And then we have other objects in our solar system like asteroids or even planets which are discovered beyond the orbit of Pluto like Hyme, Makemake, and Eris. And then, of course, you have objects like comets, which are very small in size, and but they exhibit a very long tail and can be easily visible. And recently, you must have heard about this comet coming very close to the Earth about a month back, and a lot of people were able to see it where they have a clear sky. So all these objects makes up our solar system, and if you compare the size of them with respect to each other, you will see that these four inner planets, or we call as terrestrial planets because they are rocky planets. Earth and Venus is almost similar size. Mars is roughly half, and Mercury is 1/3 of that of the Earth. But when you compare them with the outer part of solar system, Jupiter, of course, is the biggest planet in the solar system, and about 10 Earth can fit inside Jupiter. Saturn is the second largest, and then Uranus and Neptune. So Earth is actually the 5th largest planet in our solar system. But when you compare all of them with respect to Sun, then you realize how small the Earth is. Jupiter itself, about 10 Jupiters can sit inside the Sun, and almost 100 Earth can go inside the Sun. So Earth is a very small dot you can see over here when you talk against the Sun. And then over this dot, now you find where you are on this planet Earth. So we are quite small in size compared to the size and the dimensions of our solar system, and in particular the Sun, the family or the head of our solar system. It basically gives us all the light and energy. Now, talking about the Mars mission, which we call as MOM or Mars Orbiter Mission, you are seeing on the bottom three what you call photographs. One is the launch vehicle, which is on the right side bottom, which is basically a space launch vehicle, or the rocket which takes the spacecraft into space. And on the right side bottom or left side bottom, you are seeing the spacecraft itself, which has to function in space. And then you are in the middle, you are seeing a big antenna dish, which is basically required for communication. So when you're far away from the Earth, you need a bigger dish to communicate, like we have the dish to catch the signals for watching TV. This is a big dish for communicating with the spacecraft. I'm going to use very simple language so that you all can appreciate the aspects of this kind of missions. When you look at the Earth and Mars, which I just showed, because Mars is half the size of the Earth, the gravity is smaller, and being a little further away from the Sun compared to Earth, it receives almost like half of the sunlight what Earth receives. But there is a major difference between the atmosphere of Earth and Mars. Firstly, the composition. Earth is basically nitrogen and oxygen dominated, whereas Mars, if you see, is completely carbon dioxide. CO2 is a dominant gas. It is almost like 95%. And nitrogen is only very small, about few percent. So the atmosphere of Mars is very, very different compared to that of the Earth. And if you talk about the surface pressure, in the case of Earth, we say the air which you are breathing, it is about 1 bar or 1000 millibar. But the surface pressure on the Mars is about 100 times smaller than that of the Earth. So there are very subtle differences between Earth and Mars, and that makes study of the Mars very interesting. Now, when we talk about this Mars Orbiter mission, we had, I will just give you a quick relook or review so that you appreciate, and then I will go back. Okay? So we had a launch on 5th of November 2013. You can say almost like 7 years back. And then after traveling for 10 months, we reached Mars on September 24, 2014. And so far, we have been orbiting around Mars. Though we had a planned mission for 6 months, now it is going to be almost 6 years on September 24th this year, when we'll be completing 6 years in orbit around Mars. And it is working very, very well. So this is one of the very great achievement which our scientists and engineers have achieved, that we are able to go around the Mars and orbit it for almost 6 years now, though the mission lifetime was just 6 weeks. Coming to details of this kind of missions, what kind of objectives we have and the challenges we have to face is that you have to design this kind of missions which have the capability to survive of going around the Earth. I'll talk about that a little later. Cruise phase of almost like 10 months and then getting captured into orbit around another planet. And remember that Earth is moving, the spacecraft is moving, and the Mars is moving. So everybody is moving and you have to get captured. In addition to this, because the distance is large, you have to think about communication, navigation, and management. And because of the large time delays, you have to also think about the autonomy features. And I will come on this aspect also. When we talk about the science aspects of this, our interest was basically to understand the surface of the Mars, the morphology, mineralogy, and of course, the atmospheric composition. How does the gas is different? Varies as a function of altitude. Is it just a CO2 dominated alone, or it is changing as the height is changing? So when we had the launch on 5th of November, we are all going around the Earth, which you see over here. I don't know whether you can see the cursor. My white cursor, are you able to see that? Moving on the screen?
Yes, yes,
Okay,
yes.
fine. So we were all going around the Earth after the launch for almost like 25 days. And the reason for that was we were gaining velocity. Because our rocket was not powerful enough to directly inject us out of the orbit into a heliocentric orbit. So we are all gaining velocity. And this is a very, what you call, innovative way of saving the fuel also on the spacecraft. And on the 1st of December, we actually departed from the Earth, went into a heliocentric orbit. And at the time of departure, the Mars was here, you can see over here. And now, after 10 months of travel, we had to reach into this orbit around the Mars, and the Mars has to arrive here. So these are the kind of very precise injections and calculations done for us to know that you have to put the spacecraft in the right orbit so that it arrives at the Mars at the right time. So that's why we have 3 phases for this mission: the geocentric phase, the heliocentric phase, and then the Martian phase. Now, talking about the spacecraft itself, if you see, it is about 1350 kg. So it's about 1.3 ton. But out of that, if you look at the propellant or the fuel which it carries, is about 850 kg. So something like 60% of the mass of the spacecraft is the fuel which is carried. In addition, of course, you must be seeing this big, what you call blue color solar panel, which is basically for power generation of the spacecraft. This big dish which you're seeing over here, which is basically required for communication. And then, of course, the various subsystems of the spacecraft. Now, talking about first challenge which came us when we were taking this kind of mission was that 2 of the very important events, that is the 4th stage ignition and the separation of the spacecraft from the PSLV launch vehicle, that is Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle, was to occur deep in the South Pacific. And if you see this picture, you will see that there is no land in this region. It's completely ocean. So, but we have to capture the signals. How to do that? So what we did was we sent 2 ships from India, Nalanda and Yamuna, and there were shipborne terminals on that, which captured these crucial events. And this was done for the first time. We had never done this before. Okay. So this kind of engineering challenges comes up when we take this kind of mission. So I'm trying to emphasize on how the challenges comes up and how you have to take care of them. So these shipborne terminals provided us exact timing of the ignition of the 4th stage and separation of the spacecraft, and which told us that the spacecraft has been put into the very precise orbit what we require. On the ground, I was just talking about, there's a big antenna. It's a 32-meter antenna, which we call as Indian Deep Space Network, which is communicating with the Mars Orbiter mission or the Mangalyaan. And the size of this, you can see it with the 3 humans sitting or standing here in the bottom. So you can imagine that how big this antenna looks like compared to the antenna on the top of your houses, which is basically required for catching the TV signals. And on the spacecraft, when you talk about, this is a big dish, which you see over here. And this is a 2.2 meter antenna on the spacecraft, which uses the S-band for the communication with the ground antenna. Now, talking about another challenge was that when you talk about going from Earth to Mars, the light travel time delays can be as large as 40-45 minutes. It could be as small as 8 minutes. It could be as large as 40. Now, if there is something happening on the spacecraft during that time, or you want to know the health of the spacecraft, it will take a very large amount of time for it to receive the signals from you and to acknowledge and send back that I am okay. Hence, we have to introduce a new logic into the spacecraft subsystems, which is called false detection, isolation, and configuration. And this is a very special logic which is built in for this kind of big space missions, because we never required this when we are going around the Earth, or even when we went to the moon, because when we want to send the signals to the moon and receive and acknowledge that things are fine, it takes hardly a minute. Hardly a second. Whereas here, it is minutes, several minutes. And therefore, you need to have autonomy features so that the spacecraft itself takes care of itself rather than waiting for commands to come from the Earth. Now, talking about the spacecraft itself, this is the bare body of the Mars Orbiter mission. This is in Space Center URSC, that is URO Space Center in Bangalore. And you can see the various subsystems of the spacecraft getting built up. This is getting assembled in a clean room in Bangalore. You will see various people working there, assembling different subsystems. This is a helium tank, which is used as a percent, getting assembled there. And slowly you build the whole spacecraft piece by piece, assembling the various subsystems, as well as, of course, the various experiments, which has to do science on board. And then you cover this whole spacecraft with a sheet which is called multi-layer insulation. It is golden in color, but it is not gold actually. It is multi-layer insulation, which is basically required to keep the spacecraft in safe environment and keep its various subsystems at proper temperatures when you went into space. And then this whole spacecraft, though all subsystems have been tested separately, now the whole spacecraft has to be tested and tested in a thermo vacuum. That is thermal test in a vacuum environment. Because when you are going to space, you are going into vacuum. And now you have to see the performance of the whole spacecraft as well as the individual subsystems together. And that is how this test is very, very important. And this is done in a big chamber. You see over here, this whole spacecraft getting lowered into this bottom deck. And then this whole chamber will be closed with this lid, which you're seeing over here. And then you generate a vacuum of -6 millibar or torr, and then test each subsystem and its functionality. So this is a very, very important test which is done before we say that the spacecraft is all safe to fly. And then you also test all the subsystems, including the solar panels, and see its functionality, its power generation. And because you have to communicate with the spacecraft in space, you have to also go for electromagnetic interference and electromagnetic compatibility tests. And that is a very special test because the frequencies at which we are communicating with the spacecraft or the spacecraft that's communicating with the ground should not have any interference from the subsystems on the spacecraft. After all this is done, this whole spacecraft is ready, and this spacecraft is sent in a special vehicle from Bangalore to our launch pad in Sriharikota. So now you can see the map of India. I hope you are all seeing the slides properly.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Okay, good, good. So the red one, which you're seeing, the circle big down here is Bangalore, and the green one is the Sriharikota, our launch pad from where the launches takes place. And you are also seeing many other centers of Department of Space and ISRO spread all across India. They all take part together when we do this kind of missions where we develop the rockets at different places, different subsystems are developed at different places, and they all get assembled at Bangalore for the spacecraft, and for the rocket it is in Sriharikota, that is in Shah. So the MOM has now arrived in Sriharikota in Shah, and then because it has traveled by road, we do some post-transportation tests. And after that, a lot of test is done. It takes a couple of weeks for doing all this. Then it gets assembled on the top of the launcher. So now you can see the adapter of the launcher here. And on the top of this launcher, you are seeing the spacecraft which is sitting there on the 4th stage of the launch vehicle, of the PSLV. This was the 25th launch of the PSLV. That's why it called C-25. And after that, you can see the two big shields on the either side, which is the heat shields, which will close this whole spacecraft so that it doesn't face thermal issues when it is flying through the atmosphere. So now you can see the MOM spacecraft sitting inside the heat shield, and it is only just the umbilical cord which you see over here is attached. Rest all is a self-dependent spacecraft sitting inside the heat shield or the nose cone of the bay of the launcher. And it is almost getting ready for the launch. Now you can see the PSLV. The PSLV is a Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle. It is a 4-stage rocket of India, one of the workhorse force of India. And that time, this was the 25th successful launch of the PSLV. Right now, it is already hitting a half a century. And this rocket is assembled vertically up in this assembly building, which you're seeing in the back. And I think you can see it much better over here now. And after this vertical assembly of the rocket, this whole building is moved back on the rails, leaving the rocket on the launch pad. And this whole building moves almost like a kilometer back, and the launch really takes place. And on the background of that, you are seeing the second launch pad of India, which is visible with all these 4 big, what you call antennas kind of things, which is basically lightning arresters. So we had this 44-meter tall PSLV standing ready for the launch. And we had the launch on 5th of November, 2013, in the middle of the day at 14:38 Indian Standard Time, that is 2:38 p.m. And this is ignition taking place, and then the rocket starts lifting up. I had this movie, but somehow I'm finding it a little difficult. I don't know whether this will not show up when I transmit it across, so I'll just try to skip this one. But this was just a small movie showing the first stage of the PSLV, lifting it off and just going up in the sky. Because of course the launch was almost like 45 minutes long, so that will be equivalent to the whole talk time. So I'm not going to show you the whole launch, but after the launch, we actually went into this orbit, which I was just talking about, around the Earth, and then departed from the Earth on 1st of December. So we had this orbits around the Earth every time, and this was basically required to increase the velocity so that we can get a velocity of almost higher than 11.2 kilometers per second, which is the escape velocity for the Mother Earth. And that was achieved on 1st of December, and we started moving on a heliocentric orbit towards the Mars. Now, talking about the Mars orbiter mission itself, you can see here how it was sitting inside the heat shield or the nose cone of the bay in the stout condition. So this is how the spacecraft looks like in the stout condition, but in the fully deployed condition, this is how the spacecraft looks like. So you can see the solar panels are deployed, the antenna deployed, and the various subsystems are functioning. When we talk about the science payloads or the science experiments which has been flown on this Mars orbiter mission, there are 5 of them. 3 of them were developed in Space Application Center in Ahmedabad, the Mars color camera, the methane sensor for Mars, the thermal infrared spectrometer. There's an instrument called Lyman alpha photometer developed in Laboratory for Electro-Optics and Sensors in Bangalore. And when I was in Vikram Sarabhai Space Center in Trivandrum, we developed this experiment called MANTA, which is a Mars exospheric neutral composition analyzer, the Martian upper atmosphere and exosphere. And all these payloads or the experiments, they only just total 13 kg. The whole spacecraft is 1300 kg. It is basically just 1% of the mass of the spacecraft was just science payloads or science experiments. And these all experiments are sitting on a different sites or different locations on the spacecraft depending upon their science objectives. So you can see these 3 cameras sitting on this side of the spacecraft, which is basically the minus pitch side, because they are all interested to look towards the Mars. The MANTA experiment sitting on the plus roll axis of the spacecraft because it has to do in situ measurement of the gases present in the atmosphere. And the Lyman alpha photometer sitting over here, because it also needs to look at the limb of the planet. After the mission, we were all continuously monitoring what is happening in the spacecraft. So this is the mission control room in Bangalore, in ISTRAC. This is a tracking center in Bangalore. And this is the mission control room. You can see all the people looking at their monitors, watching the health of the spacecraft. We had to continuously keep watching this for more than 10 months after the launch to see how the function of the spacecraft is and whether the spacecraft is on the right track. Now, when the spacecraft is going to arrive on the Mars, that is the D-Day of 24th of September, we not only use this Bangalore Deep Space Network of India, but we also use the networks across the globe. And we use the network of NASA at Goldstone, Madrid, and Canberra. So they are all situated in different continents so that you can have a full coverage of the signals coming from the spacecraft. And this is essentially required because you need to know the activity in the spacecraft very precisely. And this is the most crucial period when you are actually injecting an orbiter around another planet. And if you look at the history of the exploration of the Mars, you'll find that many spacecraft got lost in this crucial mission phase when they could not inject or get captured into an orbit around a planet. So when you go into this kind of mission, what we have to now do is we have to slow down and get captured. It's not that we have to increase the velocity now, we have to reduce the velocity. And that is what is done when we rotate the spacecraft and fire in the same direction in which we are moving. So you see here the blue part of this orbit, which is basically reorienting the spacecraft, and then it starts firing the same direction in which it is moving so that you slow down and get captured. Okay? But now there's a lot of interesting things. This is Mars, you see over here. This is the sunlit side because sun is on this side. So we are capturing the Mars from the back side or the night side. Okay? And this is the direction of the Earth. So we are also on the other side of the Earth. And that's why there will be no communication. So firstly, we are not getting power from the sun. So the whole spacecraft is on battery. And secondly, there will be a communication blackout. So essentially what happened on that day was that we knew that the engine has started firing for almost a couple of minutes. And then there's a communication blackout. And even before that, since the Mohammed spacecraft is in the shadow, everything is on power batteries. So power batteries are functioning, providing the power to the spacecraft, and all the subsystems are functioning under the autonomy which is loaded in the spacecraft because there is no communication happening from the Earth. So this was a very crucial time for all of us. We all waited there anxiously. We all were sitting in the mission control room for seeing what is happening when the MOM is behind Mars. And as soon as the signal came, which you see here, the green part, which is a time when the engine has already shut off using autonomy features. So everything was happening autonomous. There was no command and control given from the planet Earth to this MOM. And when it came out, the signal resumed. We came to know that yes, our Mangalyaan has entered the Martian orbit, and it became the success story, which came on 24th of September at 8 a.m. And that made India the first country in the world to have the successful insertion of an orbiter around the Mars in the first attempt. That is the major achievement which India achieved, because no other country so far had insertion around the Mars in the first attempt. And that is how all the space agencies around the world are really praising India, because this is the rare feat which India could achieve. And this is our PM Modi ji congratulating our Prime Minister, congratulating the then ISRO chairman on this accomplishment. He was actually also present there in the mission control. And then as soon as the news broke out, he came down and then he actually addressed all of us. So we are all knowing that we have reached Mars. We are really joy and delighted. But how to know that we have really reached Mars? So what we did, we immediately rotated the spacecraft to look at the planet. And then this is the kind of picture which came very first picture. And this was immediately presented to the Prime Minister. And I was also holding this picture during that time of celebrating the joy what we are getting for insertion of a Mars orbiter mission around the Mars. As soon as this information broke out, one of my colleagues in US sent me this photograph. And he says that MOM has become so famous, it is coming on the Coke diet itself. and I really used it for showcasing how people were really celebrating this joy and success and cherishing this moment. And Google actually made a doodle. Oh yeah, okay, good. Great. Very nice. Okay.
Dada, it is surprise.
So Google.
My children want a Coke.
Very nice.
Talking, Dada will bring this can to us.
Yeah. So Google had a doodle after 1 month of its orbit around the Mars, the Mangalyaan, on 24th of October. And there were, of course, many other celebrations. I will not go into detail of that, but to just highlight, even Amul, you know, was celebrating the success by putting up this cartoon of ISRO's. It is actually ISRO and made from ISRO's cow Amul, a cheez badi hai, mast Mars. So this is the Amul's way of celebrating. And the photographs of this mission came actually on the National Geographic channel. You see over here.
Yes.
And the magazine, the National Geographic, covered many of these images and it made one of them on the cover page of this magazine. And Government of India, realizing this rare technological feat, has put Mangalyaan on the back of 2,000 rupees note. I hope all of you must have noticed that, you know, because this is a real engineering feat which India has achieved. So it was a well-planned mission for 6 months, but it has lasted for 6 years now. It is going to complete 6 years on coming 24th of September. And everyone has really cherished and celebrated this mission. We all take pride in this mission. And since I was a part of the this whole mission, including my experiment called Menka, and Menka, though, you know, in the mythology, you know, the Menka is one of those apsaras, you know, of Rishi Vishwamitra. And people used to tell me, oh, you have sent the Menka to Mars, so you thought Rishi is there on the Mars too, and things like that. So we had a real good time for this mission, and it's really a joy and pride for all of us that it is still functioning and working very well. So touching a little bit of science of this mission, I think I'm still having a couple of minutes left for me. So this is the kind of images we are getting from the Mars because it's in a highly elliptical orbit around Mars. So India, or the Indian Mangalyaan, has the rare privilege of taking the full disk images of the Mars. And now with 6 years, which is basically 3 Martian years, we now know the type of changes which take place on the Mars as a function of season as well as different years. You will see some of these images over here. This is now at a time when the Mars is a little further away from the sun, and you can see the both north and south poles, the ice getting formed. This is the top one is the north pole, the bottom is the south pole. And since it is CO2 dominated, you see the CO2 get frozen on the surface of the Mars in the polar regions. Of course, you see a lot of features on the surface of Mars, and one of them is a photograph here. You're seeing Phobos, which is a very small satellite of Mars, which is just moving in front of Mars. You can see the black dot over here, which is moving. And that shows the small satellite of Mars, the Phobos, moving in front of Mars. We also have a lot of information about the geological features on the surface of Mars. And one of the features is called Valles of Marineris. This is a big canyon, the Martian Canyon, which is much, much bigger than the Grand Canyon in US. It is almost like 4,000 kilometer long and 200 kilometer wide, and almost like 7 kilometer deep. And this canyon, depending upon the season of the Mars, this canyon you can see is full of dust and clouds. So what you're seeing here is the huge cloud structures on the canyon. And these all are cloud structures because they are casting shadows on the surface of the Mars. But you can see this canyon sometimes very clear now in this picture, where you see a 3D picture of the Valles Marineris from one of the cameras on the Mars mission, the Mangalyaan. And you can see the full canyon as well as a lot of other features, geological features nearby, which we call as chashmas. We have also got a lot of information about the mons. Mons means mountains on the surface of the Mars. And this is the Olympus Mons, which is the highest mountain in our solar system. And this is actually a 3D portrayal of this, what do you call it, the mountain. And this also has provided us a lot of information about the formation of geological features on the surface of Mars, how the transportation of dust takes place on the Mars, the dust storms, which we also talk about on the Mars. And in particular, how this wind which flows on the Mars forms these different clouds. So what you're seeing over here is the mountains. You see here Olympus Mons. And on the side of this, what you are seeing, these white features, is basically the clouds. It is not the very similar cloud in the case of Earth, which is water dominated. Here you can have clouds of CO2, carbon dioxide. Okay? And you also see many other features of various geological structures on the surface of the Mars. And these kind of clouds basically get formed on the leeward side, or the side against which the wind is blowing. And these features are well comparable to what we see in the planet Earth. So we are now learning much more about what is happening on the planet Mars vis-a-vis what we know on the planet Earth. Some of the science results which came from my experiment called MENCA about looking at the various composition changes as we move away from the planet's surface. I will just show you this small cartoon which talks about the density distribution on the surface, from the surface of Mars. And we are talking about now somewhere around 265 to 400 kilometers above the surface. And when you see this region, you basically see that it is oxygen dominated, atomic oxygen dominated, not carbon dioxide dominated. So when you move away from the planet, from the surface of the planet, up into the atmosphere, you find that CO2 basically gets dissociated due to solar photons or solar ultraviolet radiation and forms carbon and oxygen. And oxygen, because there are two oxygen in CO2, O starts dominating. So basically it is a lighter species which starts dominating as you go up in the atmosphere. And that is what was observed now with the MENCA experiment on the Mars orbiter mission. And this is only results which is available on the evening side. And this is evening side means what I say is, if you look at this Mars picture over here, on the left side is the sun. So you see here, this is the sunlit side, and the other side is the right side is the dark side. The MOM is entering, the MOM is entering the planet on the other side, as I see from here. So the other side is the morning side, and the nearer side is the evening side. And we have observations of the evening side. So this was a very unique information which came from this experiment called MENCA, which now gave us information that how different the evenings on the Mars are compared to completely sunlit atmosphere. And that is changing our concept of how the CO2 dominated atmosphere changes to O dominated atmosphere. Where does this dominance starts taking place? And this has a big role in actually escape of atmosphere of the planet itself. Because O being a lighter species can escape faster compared to CO2. CO2 means it is 44 atomic mass unit. O is 16. So you have a species which is 3 times lighter in the atmosphere higher up, which can escape faster compared to a species which is CO2. And this is actually changing our now thinking about how fast Mars would have lost its atmosphere, because now we know that surface pressure of the Mars is 100 times smaller than the planet Earth itself. This is the images of the Deimos, another satellite of Mars. And this is the first image of Deimos taken from different angles. Because of the highly elliptical orbit, we will actually go to the backside of Deimos and take the pictures. And what you're seeing over here is the 5 images. We are all joined together to form this. And this is the first time we came to know really how the Deimos really looks like. And you can see both these pictures together now of Phobos and Deimos, which was taken on 14th of October in 2014 itself, using the Mars color camera. So we have a lot of information coming out from this Mars orbiter mission. We now know the thermal structure, we now know the clouds, we now know the dust, as well as how this dust cloud interaction takes place, how the densities are changing in the atmosphere and things like that. And also about the two satellites, that is the Phobos and Deimos. These are the very small satellites of few tens of kilometers in size. So it is not possible to see them from the Earth or even from the close to the planet, unless you go very close to the planet and take their pictures. And that has been possible using the Mangalyaan, that is the Mars orbiter mission. And I will show you the last very recent photograph which was taken of Phobos just in 1st of July this year, where you can actually now see much better. And you can even see that the small structures or small craters, on the Phobos. So there are names given there, like Rockley, Gilder, and Stickney or Sherkovic, which are basically a kind of craters formed on these small bodies, which in turn suggests that there is always a collision which is happening in our solar system between small bodies and big bodies. And small bodies are stuck by still smaller bodies, and that's how you get the crater formation on these bodies. So with this, I would like to thank you all for listening patiently to my lecture on the Indian MOM mission or the Mangalyaan. And I hope you must be all taking pride and will cherish this, that this is the first mission which has got the success in its first attempt. And then it has lasted for 6 years and it's still functioning. And that is a rare, what you call achievement, which a country gets, that you are able to sustain around a planet, on a different planet, for almost 6 years. And we all are really happy and delighted to see that this mission has lasted for this long. We all hope that it may last for still longer, provided things are going fine, because when the subsystems work in the space, there are degradation which keeps happening on the spacecraft. And we have to see that all systems and subsystems should work fine till we keep communicating with the spacecraft. And this is what the condition of the spacecraft is. So I thank you all for listening patiently. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for sharing the detailed presentation on Indian planetary mission, specifically on MOM, Mars Orbital Mission. Now, I am sure that many of our young budding engineers are able to correlate, and Dada has shown the Diet Coke that with MOM. So the importance of the mission for India, not only for India, but all over the world. And I'm sure that many of our young budding engineers are able to correlate the movie Mission Mangal with your presentation, sir.
Yeah.
And it is happy to know that many of the scenes from the movies which have been endorsed by you, your presentation. I would like to request Dr. Ganpat Bhai Patel, sir, Patron Chief and President, Ganpat University, to felicitate Dr. Anil Bharadwaj, sir, with a statement of gratitude. Please, sir.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Anil Bhai, for making time. And it was a wonderful presentation. I really enjoyed it. I didn't realize that everything that I saw, maybe someday we can travel together to Mangal. And hopefully. But it's amazing what India has accomplished. And I know Narendra Bhai is so proud of the team, your team. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. At the outset, I would like to express my gratitude to Dr. Anil Bharadwaj, sir, for accepting our invitation and sharing his idea with us. I would like to thank Dr. Ganpat Bhai Patel, sir, Shri B.S. Patel, sir, who have joined online all the way from USA and made it a point to bless the young budding engineers on this Engineers Day. I would like to thank Dr. Mahendra Sharma, sir, Dr. R.K. Patel, sir, Dr. Amit Patel, sir, for their constant support and guidance. I am thankful to the organizing team. I would like to extend my sincere thanks to all the distinguished guests, executive deans, directors, principals, head, faculty members, and dear students for lending their ears and making this webinar successful. Thank you once again. Thank you one and all. Now, before concluding, I'm happy to announce that very recently on the auspicious occasion of 74th Independence Day, we have inaugurated the microforest in the lush green campus of Ganpati University and planted 600 trees in the plot of 200 square meter. We feel proud to say that at present, campus houses 40,000 trees. That is one student, 3 trees. On Teachers' Day, 5th September, second plot by planting 600 trees. Today, on the auspicious occasion of Engineers' Day, we are planting 600 trees in this microforest, 600 more trees in this microforest to express our gratitude towards all engineers, and it is dedicated to the Physical Research Laboratory in the honor of the research for the nation building and making Atmanirbhar Bharat. So today, after this function, we are going to plant 600 more trees on our campus in the microforest, sir.
Great. That's a great news, and thanks for putting it on behalf of Physical Research Laboratory. It is basically, we can say, on behalf of Vikram Bhai, because he is the founder of Physical Research Laboratory as well as the father of Indian Space Program. So thank you all for this very good gesture which you are doing, and keep planting more and more trees. I bless all the people who are going to plant these trees. I hope students will take active part in this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Towards the end, now I would like to, yes, sir. Any?
No.
Okay. Towards the end, I would like to request all to join for the university song. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
गणपत विद्यानगर तणा हमें तेज पुंज अविनाशी आधन्य धराना संतानो हमें सरस्वती अनुरागी आधन्य धराना संतानो हमें सरस्वती अनुरागी गणपत विद्यानगर गणपत विद्यानगर नव चेतन अम पगले प्रगटे आलस जड़ता त्यागी युग युग नांधार हरती नान जोत अहि जागी युग युग नांधार हरती नान जोत अहि जागी गणपत विद्यानगर गणपत विद्यानगर ज्ञान तना निर्मल प्रकाश थी धर धर उज्जवल करशु सत्य प्रेम करुणा छलकावी स्वर्ग भूमि पद धरशु सत्य प्रेम करुणा छलकावी स्वर्ग भूमि पद धरशु गणपत विद्यानगर गणपत विद्यानगर समाज नो उत्कर्ष साधवा हमें विद्या ने आराधी रहे न कोई दीन अकिंचन क्रूर दुष्ट हतभागी रहे न कोई दीन अकिंचन क्रूर दुष्ट हतभागी गणपत विद्यानगर गणपत विद्यानगर यज्ञ दान तप कर्म हमारा शाश्वत रहे प्रकाशी धरा गुर्जरी मात भारती ठाशे धन्य सुभागी धरा गुर्जरी मात भारती ठाशे धन्य सुभागी गणपत विद्यानगर गणपत विद्यानगर विवेक विद्या पराक्रम थी अंबर आंबी लईशु सुजलाम सुफलाम धरती माना चरणे जीवन धरशु सुजलाम सुफलाम करशु गणपत विद्यानगर गणपत विद्यानगर
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone. Thank you.
Thank you for joining
Thank
on
you.
this day.
Thank you, sir.
Namaste. Thank you.
Bye,
Bye,
sir.
sir.
Bye, sir. Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you,
sir.
Amal bhai, thank you
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
for connecting Bhardwaj sahab in very
Before-
short time.
all my
Before
pleasure, sir.
concluding the session, I just would like to announce all the students, those who have joined in our first session. We have one more session, so between 3 to 4. So please be ready for that. Thank you, sir.
Anand, please share which the session will be addressed by.
Right, sir. The session will be addressed by Shri Nilesh Desai, sir. He is Associate Director at Space Application Center, ISRO. I'm just sharing presentation.
Sure.
Okay,
No.
sir. We are sharing the invitation card, sir. Right, sir.
Yes. So today we have a full day on space research.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely, sir.
Great.
So that session will be from it will start at 3 o'clock, and the theme is Atmanirbhar Bharat, indigenous NAV IC technology and its applications, sir. And the
So
speaker
all our-
is Shri.
So we should invite all our startups students also. Students who have registered in SSIP, they should also join.
Right, sir.
Right.
Right, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, one and all, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Vechak Bhai Sahib. Thank you, Dada. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. चले अपने
Thank you. Thank you.
Sir.